Okay, let's dive in. Picture this. It's 1776. James Cook, this son of a Yorkshire farm laborer, is basically the biggest celebrity in London, like a scientific and naval rock star.
Seriously. Everyone wants a piece of him.
Hmm?
Portrait painters, scientists, even the king, George III, is paying attention. He's up for the Royal Society, about to win the Copley Medal.
Parliament's calling him the first navigator of Europe. It's an incredible rise from, well, from virtually nothing.
Absolutely unprecedented, really. Mingling with the elite compared to Drake, just at the absolute peak.
And yet, right at this moment, he's gearing up for voyage number 3. His final one, as it turns out. So what was the deal? What were they really after?
That's what we're digging into. We're using the sources, the official accounts, personal journals from the men on board, letters, that sort of thing.
So this deep dive is for you, the listener. We want to guide you through this, well, incredible and ultimately tragic journey.
Yeah, it covers so much ground: imperial ambition, science, just the sheer difficulty of navigation, both physically and, culturally.
We'll hit some surprising facts, look at the complexities of first contact. Think of it as your shortcut to understanding this moment, straight from the people who lived it.
And the timing is crucial, isn't it? 1776. England's about to go to war with its American colonies.
Right, tensions are sky high, resources are stretched thin, so why on earth launch another massive, expensive trip to the other side of the planet?
Ambition. Specifically, the ambition of people like Lord Sandwich. He was head of the Admiralty, a huge supporter of Cook.
And he believed Cook could crack one of the biggest geographical puzzles left.
Exactly. The Northwest Passage. That sea route over North America. But, and this is key, that wasn't the story they told everyone.
Ah, the public story was different.
Completely different. Finding the passage. That was top secret.
Okay, so let's talk about Cook himself at this point. We know he's famous, lauded.
The living legend. But the sources paint him as, well, hard to know personally. Hard to please, hard to fool. Very reserved.
Someone described him as having depths, but the soundings were few.
That captures it perfectly. A very laconic style. Practical. Maybe that Yorkshire background.
And his approach to Indigenous peoples before this voyage, it had a certain pattern, right?
Generally, yes. He aimed for impartial observation, driven by curiosity. Often the first ashore, usually unarmed.
Trying for peaceful exchange, mostly, though not without conflict, obviously.
No, there were definitely violent encounters on earlier voyages too, but the intent was often observation and trade, especially initially.
And his crew leadership was seen as pretty forward-thinking for the Royal Navy.
Oh, definitely. Much less use of the lash compared to other captains. He was genuinely concerned about his crew's health, their well-being. That was radical.
Which leads to one of his biggest triumphs, beating scurvy.
Huge. That disease used to wipe out crews on long voyages. On his second trip, not a single death from scurvy. A massive breakthrough.
Even though they didn't know it was vitamin C deficiency until, what, the 1930s?
Exactly. He just knew his methods, sauerkraut, malt worked. He insisted the crew use them.
He also proved the marine chronometer worked reliably at sea.
Right, solving the longitude problem. Knowing your east-west position was incredibly difficult before reliable sea clocks. Cook's voyages were crucial tests.
So those two things alone cemented his status. And then for this third voyage, there's this very public element, the return of Mai.
Yeah, Mai, or Omai, as he was often called. The young Polynesian man Cook brought back to England after the second voyage.
And he became a huge sensation.
Totally. Sponsored by Joseph Banks, the rich botanist from the first voyage, who really, popularized the image of Tahiti.
Banks sounds like a character. Affable bachelor, liked Tahiti's charms.
And he was thrilled with Mai, thought his adaptation to English society was prodigious, praised his gentility.
And May's time in England sounds wild, meeting the king.
Ice skating, parliament tours, hanging out with Lord Sandwich at the dockyards. He even took up hunting, apparently shot anything that moved, much to the locals' annoyance.
But there was some debate about how Banks was handling him. Like, was he just a curiosity?
Yeah, some people felt Banks was just showing him off like a show pony. Others, like Granville Sharp, wanted him to get a proper education, reading, writing, Christian instruction.
Did he learn much?
Sharp tried, but reports say Mai wasn't that keen on academics, though he was respectful of religion.
But politically, returning Mai became the official reason for the voyage.
Precisely. The Admiralty's public instructions were clear. First major goal after leaving Africa was to take Mai home to the Society Islands, set him up with gifts, a house, livestock from the king. It was a nice, understandable story.
all while the country is actually bracing for war.
It really highlights the weird priorities, doesn't it? War looming in America, and they're funding this massive Pacific venture. Seems like an extraneous luxury, as someone put it.
But Lord Sandwich pushed it through. Cook initially wasn't even supposed to command, was he?
No, he was just advising on refitting the Resolution. Sounded almost a bit envious that he wasn't going. The first choice was Charles Clerk.
Clerk, good officer, witty, maybe a bit too fond of drink.
That seems to be the gist. There were doubts. Then came this key dinner at the Admiralty. Sandwich, Cook, others discussing the voyage.
And somehow Cook ends up volunteering or being persuaded.
Yeah, his biographer Kippis suggests Cook reacted unexpectedly during the discussion, and next thing you know, he's got the command.
So he accepts, reports back to the Resolution, starts interviewing crew, a big change from planning retirement.
Must have felt strange. Some later saw it as tempting fate, pushing his luck with a third dangerous voyage.
And he leaves his family wife Elizabeth, young sons. He'd never see them again.
A huge personal cost. Sandwich did arrange a stipend for Elizabeth, at least.
So the ships, Resolution and Discovery under Clerk, gather supplies at Plymouth. Public mission. Return May. Real mission. Secret. Find the Northwest Passage from the Pacific side.
And that secrecy bred suspicion. Spies watching in Plymouth. Were they going to attack Spanish California? Help Russia conquer Japan? Wild theories.
The Spanish even ordered his arrest if he showed up near their territory.
Despite all that, the best officers and scientists were lining up to join. Cook had his pick.
People like William Anderson, the surgeon naturalist.
Brilliant guy. And William Bailey, the astronomer. David Nelson, the plant collector. John Weber, the artist.
David Samwell, another surgeon, a good writer. And James King, second lieutenant, becomes a close friend of Cook's.
A really talented group. Even some guys with checkered pasts signed on again. Like Sergeant Gibson, who Cook had flogged before. Shows the draw of these voyages. Maybe loyalty to Cook despite everything.
Okay, so the ships are ready, crews aboard, secret orders are locked away. They set sail.
July 12th, 1776. Cook, apparently tired of waiting for Clerk, sails Resolution out of Plymouth.
And Lieutenant King noted the date exactly 4 years since the Resolution left on the second voyage. He thought it was a good omen.
Well, the good omen didn't last long. They hit rough seas almost immediately. The Resolution was leaking badly. Poor work back at the shipyard.
Cook was furious. Men couldn't stay dry. Miserable start.
First stop, Tenerife in the Canaries. Needed supplies, hay for the animals. Crew diaries show the usual anti-Spanish bias.
But Anderson, the surgeon, was making interesting observations. Wildlife, that weird impregnated lemon.
Meanwhile, Clerk's discovery was in better shape, drier. But Clerk himself, unknown to everyone, he'd caught tuberculosis in debtor's prison. That illness would shadow the entire voyage for him.
And then a close call near Cape Verde. Cook nearly hit a reef.
Yeah, the officers were apparently quite shaken. Was it just a lapse? Or a sign Cook was changing? He downplayed it in his journal, called it very alarming, but moved on quickly.
Sailing south, they hit the doldrums, calm seas, but lots of marine life drama below, and they lost a Marine overboard.
Drowning was tragically common. Most sailors couldn't swim.
They did the equator crossing ritual, the ducking, brutal hazing.
But traditional. Cook, having crossed before, was exempt.
Next major port, Cape Town. Cook knew it well, his fourth visit. Reliable place for supplies under the Dutch.
Interestingly, the sources say Cook seemed stricter here. More floggings than usual for minor things. Maybe the pressure was building.
Mai, though, apparently felt right at home. Second visit, got lots of attention, like the zoo animals. Venereal disease was also noted as a problem there.
Okay.
From Cape Town into the treacherous Southern Ocean.
Yeah, nasty conditions. Fog, icebergs, huge waves. Ships kept losing each other, firing cannons to stay in touch.
And some officers felt Cook was pushing too hard in the fog. Reckless.
There are hints of that. A blind faith in himself, maybe? Remembering that reef incident near Cape Verde, it made some uneasy.
Christmas Day, 1776, they sight land through the fog, the Kerguelen Islands.
They anchor in a bay. Penguins, seals everywhere, totally unafraid. Felt incredibly remote.
But desolate. Freezing, wet crew, desperate for firewood, and there's none. Just barren tundra. Plenty of fresh water, though.
And they find a bottle left by Kerguelen, claiming it for France. Cook, ever the professional rival, translates it, turns it over, writes his own claim for England in Latin. Formal ceremony, raises the flag.
Kind of absurd, claiming this bleak place. Some crew members thought so too.
Yeah, this real estate aggrandizement seemed ridiculous for such a spot. Cook himself called it the Isle of Desolation on his charts. Tells you what he really thought.
From there, they head towards Van Diemen's Land, Tasmania, still looking for wood, water. Cook decides to try Adventure Bay, based on Furneaux's report from the last voyage.
Found the bay, set up camp, got the animals ashore, pigs, sheep, goats, lots of strange wildlife, huge eucalyptus trees.
One officer worried people wouldn't believe how big the trees were. And nasty insects like bull ants.
Then the encounter with the locals, the Palawa people, 9 men, initially cautious. Cook goes unarmed, offers gifts. Communication's tough.
One guy shows off spear throwing, keeps missing. Then May steps up.
Wants to impress.
Oh.
Fires his English gun. The noise terrifies the Palawa. They drop the gifts, vanish into the woods.
That first impression, the power of the gun, seems significant.
Definitely sets a tone, doesn't it? An immediate imbalance created by technology they couldn't comprehend.
After Tasmania, New Zealand. Back to Queen Charlotte Sound, Ship Cove. Familiar ground for Cook, 5th time there.
Calm day, but an eerie feel, apparently. Thousands of cicadas making a racket. They set up the usual shore camp.
But they quickly hear bad news from the Maori about a massacre involving Furneaux's men from the Adventure on the previous voyage.
Lieutenant Burney leads a search party to Grass Cove, where the Adventure's cutter went for supplies. They find the boat smashed up, bits and pieces scattered. Shoes.
Then the horror. Baskets with roasted meat, still warm. Human remains scattered on the hillside. Heads, hearts, feet. Even a hand Burney recognized. Some parts cooking on fires. Dogs eating intestines.
It's incredibly grim, the most graphic violence encountered on any of Cook's voyages.
Burney sees Maori beckoning from the shore, thinks it's a trap, orders his men to fire.
Cook is deeply disturbed by this news. Orders an inquiry. He wants to understand why it happened.
And the Maori context. Fierce defenders, cannibalism part of their warrior culture.
Yes, important to remember that. It was often ritualistic, tied to warfare and absorbing an enemy's power. They were a successful, isolated people, used to conflict. They'd hunted the giant moa to extinction centuries before.
And this Grass Cove incident really shifted the mood back at Ship Cove, didn't it?
Absolutely. The Maori seemed bolder, more demanding in trade. An officer notes a nail used to buy more than an axe does now. They seemed confident of their own power.
Some English officers thought it was because Cook hadn't taken revenge for the massacre, saw his restraint as weakness.
And Cook felt caught. Tolerate it and risk more trouble, seem weak to his own men, or retaliate and betray his principles, be seen as cruel, a no-win situation.
And this is where sources really describe a change in Cook himself.
A definite turning point. From here on, he's described as much less patient, less merciful with Indigenous people, harsher. That mean streak emerges more often. The pressure seems to be fundamentally altering him.
Even minor stuff, like a midshipman's dog getting stolen and eaten, highlights the tension and loss of empathy.
And as they leave NZ, Mai wants to take a young Maori boy as a servant for his planned life back in Tahiti.
Okay, on to the Society Islands. Mai gets anxious as they approach Tahiti.
And the arrival isn't the huge welcome he might have expected. Some Tahitians had seen bigger Spanish ships, fancier uniforms, and others had traveled abroad too, so Mai wasn't unique anymore.
He tries some English stuff, like planting grapevines.
Yeah, he developed a taste for wine. But the horses Cook brought ashore that really impressed the Tahitians. Seeing a man on horseback blew them away, a symbol of foreign power. And in Tahiti, Cook finally tells the whole crew the secret mission. Arctic, Northwest Passage, 20,000-pound reward. Big news. But there's a problem. Running low on grog.
So he puts it to a vote? Drink now or save it for the cold?
Amazingly, yes. And both crews vote unanimously to save the alcohol for the Arctic. Shows their commitment, maybe the lure of that prize money, even amidst Tahiti's attractions.
Mai, meanwhile, is maybe bragging a bit too much about England.
Seems like it. Going over the top about King George's power. The local chief, Tume, was impressed, but maybe not thrilled to hear about someone that much more powerful.
And the sources keep coming back to sex, don't they? Crew fixation, Tahitian willingness.
Yeah, and the English puzzling over why Tahitian women would want shabby, smelly sailors. Theories about strategy, status, genetics, who knows? What's certain is venereal disease spread. Cook himself supposedly abstained, according to the English accounts.
They also witnessed a human sacrifice at a marae.
A sobering experience. Skulls on display, a victim who was already dead, apparently a vagrant. Cook and his men watched respectfully, hats off. Weber sketched it. Another stark cultural difference. But May was struggling, envied for his English wealth, but looked down on for his low birth. Officers doubted he'd ever fit back in. Cook seemed worried, like a father figure. Knew he needed to find May a different place to settle.
Even Anderson, the surgeon, Bill himself, apparently fantasized about just staying in Tahiti with Clerk. Shows how appealing the place seemed to some. Before leaving, they finally unloaded King George's livestock for Chief Two: cattle, horses, sheep, peacocks.
Two seemed pleased. Cook was hugely relieved, called the floating zoo a massive headache.
So searching for a place for Mai, they visit Moria. Beautiful island, good harbor.
But the chief, Maheen, is wary. He's a famous warrior, but old, frail, scarred. Worried Cook's alliance with Two means war for him. Cook assures him he's neutral.
Then things go wrong. Someone steals one of King George's goats meant for May or Two.
And Cook explodes. Sources say his rage was beyond all bounds. He orders extreme retaliation.
Burning villages, destroying canoes, and Cook himself takes part, setting fires.
Yes. Mai joins in too, maybe settling an old score, maybe showing off his new authority.
How did the officers react?
Mostly shocked, disturbed by Cook's temper. King couldn't understand it, thought it was excessive, unjust. Clerk, though, defended Cook, blamed the islanders' ridiculous conduct over the goat, said the devil made them do it.
A really dark incident shows that shift in Cook very clearly. They leave Moria, islanders probably glad to see them go.
Definitely. It's a stark contrast to his earlier approach.
Next, Huahin, a quieter island. Cook thinks this is the spot for Mai.
Mai actually wanted to go to Raiatea, his home island, and get Cook to help him fight the Bora Bora warriors who'd taken his land. Cook refused point blank. No part of inter-island wars.
Oh, in Huahin, Cook gets land for Mai. A local chief, probably intimidated, basically says, Cook owns the island, take what you want.
And another strange incident, Cook, wild-eyed and red with rage, barges into a sacred dance ceremony. Doesn't seem to get, he shouldn't interrupt, kills the whole vibe. These ceremonies would later be banned by missionaries anyway.
They build Mao, a house, English style, smells of fresh wood, Latin sign, Britannorum amicus, friend of the British, area called Pratani.
Cook leaves in supplies, animals, but limits the guns.
Mm-hmm.
Worried they'd cause more trouble for Mai than they were worth. Mai locks his door, London style. Poignant detail.
The crew were sad to leave him, liked him. Cook wrote fondly of him too, but had deep doubts.
Yeah, Cook questioned if introducing European ways would ultimately help or harm.
Yeah.
Maybe better never to have met than to be introduced and then abandoned. A surprisingly modern thought.
And Mai's legacy, mixed. Bligh later found the house ruined, stuff stolen, but locals had tattoos of a horseman, remembering May riding on the beach.
And in England, he was remembered for years. That hit play, Omai. Combs written about him. His portrait by Reynolds now worth millions. A powerful symbol of that moment.
Okay, so Mai is settled. The public mission is done. Cook's mood apparently lifts. Time for the real job, the Northwest Passage.
And back home, his book about the second voyage is a bestseller. His fame is immense, even as he's sailing into new dangers.
The search is different, right? Not a mythical continent, but a specific narrow passage through land.
Exactly. And the maps were terrible. A dog's breakfast, folklore, guesswork, distorted coastlines. Cook had to make sense of it all.
All while, unknown to him, the American Revolution is now a full-blown war. France has joined the Americans. Britain is fighting on multiple fronts.
Makes the expedition seem even more out of place. A luxury from peacetime. But Cook sails on, unaware.
March 1778, they hit the Oregon coast. Forests, snow-dusted peaks. Cook names Cape Foulweather, still called that today, sails right past the Columbia River mouth.
And also misses the Strait of Juan de Fuca, the entrance to Puget Sound. Maybe bad weather, maybe night sailing. A huge potential discovery missed, but exploring it might have cost him the Arctic season. Tough call.
Next stop, Nootka Sound, British Columbia. Safe anchorage. The Mowachaht people there seem unfazed, suggesting they'd seen Europeans before.
Probably the Spanish ship Santiago a few years earlier. The name Nootka might have come from them telling the English where to anchor or maybe telling them to clear off. Unclear.
But then things get tense. Hundreds of armed warriors arrive in canoes. Officers worry about an attack.
There's confusion. Were the newcomers arguing with the locals about the English? What became clear was the locals, the Mowachaht, fiercely guarded their trading rights. They wanted the European goods for themselves.
The sources show it was a violent place. Human hands sold as curios, severed heads on canoes, a boy offered for sale. Different groups were definitely not cordial friends.
And Cook's month here has a huge unforeseen consequence. The sea otter. They were everywhere, thriving.
The Cree started trading for their pelts. Sea beaver, they called them. Amazing fur. Initially just for warm clothes for the Arctic.
But the realization later that these pelts were hugely valuable in China. That kicked off the maritime fur trade, which devastated the sea otter population and reshaped the whole region. A massive unintended legacy of this stop.
Leaving Nootka, they head up the Alaska coast, still searching for that passage, relying on flawed maps.
Incredible landscape. Jagged peaks, glaciers, teeming wildlife. But progress is painfully slow. No wind, even in clear weather. Cook seems patient, enjoying the air, but Clerk notes it's very leisurely. Cook acknowledges Vitus Bering's earlier explorations, but notes Bering's maps were flawed, partly due to secrecy and Bering dying before finishing. Cook had better tools, crucially, scurvy prevention.
They enter Prince William Sound. Huge, complex bay, glaciers calving ice, glacial meltwater clouding the sea, supporting incredible life. Orcas. Takes days to grasp its scale.
And the old dilemma, explore every inlet or push north. He sees a massive opening future, Cook Inlet, decides he has to check it, sends Bly up one arm, King up another.
Bly finds nothing. King finds his arm turns into rivers, mud flats, fighting tides, confirms no passage south. Cook gives up, names King's dead end, turn again arm. Frustrating.
He keeps going north past Kodiak, the Aleutians, into the Bering Sea. He's struck by similarities between the Arctic peoples, Woonangans, Yupik and Nupiat, and Polynesians. How did this nation spread so far, he wonders?
August 1778, they reach the Bering Strait. Proof. Asia and America are separate.
Near the Siberian side, Cook goes ashore unarmed to meet Chukchi warriors. They probably assume the English or Russians, who they'd fought for years.
Cook tries diplomacy, takes off his cap, bows. His men do too. The Chukchi mirror the gesture, relief all round. They're welcomed into the village.
A brief, fascinating exchange. Shared food, observed their homes, sledges, kayaks, intricate ivory carvings. Cook is impressed by their ingenuity in such a harsh place. Another moment of successful, respectful observation.
But then they push north from the strait, and they hit it.
The ice barrier. An impenetrable wall around 70 degrees north. They can't go further. The Northwest Passage is close, well, maybe just beyond, but unreachable from this side this year.
So, decision time, Arctic winter coming, ice blocking the way. Cook decides to head south, back to those warm islands he'd found earlier. Winter in Hawaii, then try the Arctic again next summer.
The trip south is rough. Heavy seas, ships battered, crew worn out. They need repairs, supplies badly.
January 1779, they sail into Kealakekua Bay, Big Island, Hawaii, and are met by chaos.
Thousands of people in canoes. An incredible spectacle. Initial interactions are curious. Hawaiians checking their bodies, bringing food. Language is similar enough to Tahitian to communicate.
Priests greet them, lead Cook ashore to a heiau, a temple complex. They chant Lono, Lono, Lono.
And this is the big question. Did they think Cook was the god Lono, returning during the Makahiki festival? Or was it ritual association, strategic alignment by the priests? Hard to know definitively. Certainly made some of the crew uneasy later.
The priests set up a taboo area, a kapuv, for the English camp, and it's strictly respected, even keeps women out. Instruments are safe.
Theft, though, is different here. More casual, open, they desperately want iron. Take things right in front of the English, seemingly without guilt. It's just celebrated in their culture, apparently.
This contrasts with that earlier incident on Kauai where Lieutenant Williamson fired on locals trying to help, seen as cowardly by his own side, shows the variability of encounters.
Right. Cook's initial welcome on Kauai had been different too, people prostrating themselves. He seemed to enjoy the anthropology, venturing inland unarmed.
Though even there, accounts differ. English say Cook abstained sexually, Hawaiian lore says a chiefess offered her daughter. Different perspectives.
Back on the Big Island, Cook meets King Kalani Puyu. Friendly exchange of gifts, feather cloaks for tools, press noses, share meals. The king seems to be showing off his large population.
Then tragedy. Gunner's mate Watman dies, an old friend of Cook's. The king wants the body for local rites. Cook refuses, buries him at sea, Christian style, a point of friction.
And then Cook makes a big cultural blunder. Sees the high fences run down, asks the king if he can buy it for firewood, seems to completely forget it's sacred. Deeply offensive.
Despite that, when they leave Kealakekua, the Hawaiians cheer, wave white cloths. Seems like the Lono departure ritual is proceeding as expected. Cook plans to chart other islands.
But sailing towards Maui, they hit a fierce gale. The Resolution's foremast splits. They have no choice but to turn back. Back to Kealakekua Bay.
And the mood is totally different. The sources say everyone is tired of each other, the welcome is gone. King and chiefs are much dissatisfied to see them back unexpectedly.
Theft ramps up, becomes provocative. Blacksmith's tongues stolen, twice. Cook chases the thief ashore in a rage. Locals laugh or mislead him. A fight breaks out. Could have been much worse.
The final straw. The ship's cutter is stolen overnight, a vital boat. Cook's plan: blockade the bay, seize canoes, use muskets with ball if needed,
Well,
and
he decides to go ashore himself, take King Kalaniapu hostage until the boat is returned. Goes with Marines, armed.
crowds gather ashore, news spreads about the blockade, tensions skyrocket. A chief tries to stop the king going with Cook. Cook strikes the chief. A warrior attacks Cook. Cook fires his musket, but it's loaded with small birdshot. Doesn't penetrate the man's matte armor, just enrages him.
Cook tries to retreat to the boat, shielding his head from stones, using his gun defensively.
At the water's edge, the critical moment. A man clubs Cook. An onlooker reportedly says something like, "If he's a god, he won't cry out. If a man, he will." Cook groans, the shout goes up. "He's no god, he's only a man. Kill him!"
The king's attendant, Nue, gets on Cook's back, stabs him repeatedly in the neck with an iron dagger obtained from the English. Others hold him down. Cook is killed in the shallows.
A chaotic retreat under fire. Grief, rage among the officers. Hawaiians mourning their own dead, too. Some Hawaiians wave Cook's hat, which the English see as mockery, fueling calls for revenge. Clerk manages to prevent immediate mass retaliation. They try to get Cook's body back, but it's taken away.
Some remains are eventually returned bones, flesh. Part of a Hawaiian ritual process, perhaps appeasement. A funeral is held aboard Resolution. The bay is tabooed, grief on both ships. Kealakua becomes a haunted body of water, as King wrote.
Charles Clerk, already dying of TB, takes command, follows orders, heads back north for another try at the passage.
It's the ice wall again. Still impassable. Clerk's health fails completely. He dies in the Bering Sea, August 1779.
James King takes command, brings the ships home. The news hits England like a thunderclap. Shock, devastation. The king weeps. Admiralty crushed.
Public reaction is split. Outrage at the savages, but also more thoughtful pieces trying to see the Hawaiian perspective. Would we have acted differently, they asked.
The American crew faced choices: Britain or the Revolution. John Ledyard went back, deserted the British side, wrote the first U.S. copyrighted book about the voyage. Died young, still traveling.
And in Hawaii, the Lono story continued. Belief that he'd return. The Makahiki Festival reenacted his arrival and departure. The seasonal rains became Lono's tears, a powerful, enduring myth.
So, wrapping this up, this deep dive took us from London high society to Arctic ice, Pacific Islands, and that tragic bay in Hawaii.
It's so much more than just exploration, isn't it? Empire, science, culture clash, power shifts, human stories of triumph, error, misunderstanding. We saw the hero, the demanding captain, the flawed leader, the man.
You've journeyed through this incredibly complex voyage, hearing from those who were there. It wasn't just about maps, it was about the very edge of human interaction.
And here's the final thought. The voyage failed in its main objective, finding the Northwest Passage. But Cook mapped huge areas, encountered cultures, changed the world, and was changed by it fatally.
So consider this. In trying to connect the oceans, the Cook unleash forces trade, disease, conflict that irrevocably altered, even damaged the worlds he touched. And was his ultimate failure not on the charts, but in navigating the deep human complexities he encountered on this final, fatal journey?
Something to definitely mull over.